So I work in sculpture, but I also work in video and sometimes performance, photography, darkroom stuff. Yeah, I like to be experimenting all the time, and I think of art as like this magical option of a place where you can treat things differently than how they're treated in everyday life. So yeah, trying to follow my material intuition and use forms to like make a non-linguistic type of language and to try and communicate through form is like my main goal. Calibrating the senses to be slower and yeah, that's kind of what I am up to these days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, were your parents artists, or what did your parents do?
No, my parents are restaurant people.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up in restaurants my whole life.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is a fast pace.
Yes. You say that because this is a slow pace?
Well, yeah, it's like a very different, I mean...
Yeah. Okay. It is super fast paced, but it does feel a lot like a kitchen. I think like a lot of my brain is organized in restaurant terms, so I think very much in like front of house, back of house terms. And yeah, the studio is just a kitchen. Like those are two very similar spaces in my mind. You know, you're like mixing things and pouring things and things dry or cure, and it's all very cookie. But I love cooking too. That's like a really big part of my life. But yeah, my dad moved to Beaumont from Taiwan. His family's from the Forbidden City of China, and they fled during the Communist Revolution. And so as soon as he came to Beaumont, he just like opened a restaurant, and my mom ate at that restaurant. And here I am. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I bet he remembers what she ate.
That's a good question. Yeah, what did she order?
I don't know.
Did she get free stuff? I think she dressed cute, I think she had a goal.
Oh, she saw him.
Because her friend Guy was like, there's a cute guy who runs this restaurant. Okay. And he was like, dress cute, we're going. My mom was like, okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
amazing.
But she's from my hometown. My dad's, his whole family's Chinese. Okay. And the first restaurant was a Chinese restaurant, and then it was like the year I was born, they closed down the Chinese restaurant, opened this like fine dining restaurant. It was like French food.
Okay.
In a really beautiful 100-and-something-year-old house that I would just like play in. Wow. And I would eat a lot. I was eating a lot of tenderloin, I will say. Because when they mess something up,
sure.
Just give it to me. Just do my homework in the back. It was lovely.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, can you kind of introduce us to your studio and this idea of front and back of house?
Yeah.
Just kind of like take us to the...
Yeah, totally.
Let's think about what is the front of house?
Well, I realize that I think a lot in twos.
Okay.
In like dichotomies or binaries or pairs. So I'm always thinking about something in its contrast. And in sculptural terms, I'm always thinking about the form and then its surface. Okay. So sometimes when we look at something, we can see what material it's made of, obviously. Sometimes when we look at something, we're actually looking at like a painted surface of a material or a form. And I'm really interested in that like sixth sense that I think we all have, where we can tell how deep the surface of something is.
Okay.
When I look at that ladder, I know it's not painted wood. I know it's a wooden ladder.
Yeah.
And that's like very interesting to me as a sense that we don't quite have a name for. It's like the depth or the integrity of like a material.
Okay.
And I find that a lot of architecture and like the buildings we build and live in today are a lot of like surface. There's a lot of like surfaces, but they sort of obscure the inner material of that building, which is usually like styrofoam or cinder blocks. When, for example, you see this like foil covered form, you know that the foil is hiding something below it.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking at the depth of material, I'm looking at only the surface, and I'm visually only getting granted access to the surface.
That's what you're succeeding in doing and wrapping it in the illusion.
Yeah, I think so. And I kind of antagonize that practice in my mind. Like there are ways in which the built environment conditions us to perceive things.
Okay.
One example is like when a rock is painted, or when something is painted to look like a rock,
Yeah.
you know, in like a public park or something, but it's
Yeah.
actually like a speaker, or, you know, this ladder is being clad in aluminum foil and it's like an unsuccessful, like funny attempt to make this ladder look like it's metal.
I see.
It's not, obviously not metal, but I think that's like where this logic is coming from.
Okay. Now, do we have another example of that in the studio? Kind of playing off of this?
Yeah. I mean, this is an example. I think like if I'm, you know, kind of making a joke about metal ladders here, like this process is, these are some other person's codex that I found. But in the process of soaking them, they're no longer codex. They're just like their material constituent parts.
Okay.
So like, you know, a photograph we look at, we don't think of it as paper with ink on it. We think of it as like memory or a story. It's like this object is like a transmitter of meaning.
And we definitely think of it as permanent once it's printed. And so as a photographer, it definitely is like kind of blowing my mind, the idea of like, oh, you could actually reconstitute the surfaces to become almost more like a watercolor.
Right.
Which is interesting. And
I think like, you know, if there's any activism here in the material world for me, like I'm interested in kind of like showing that the parts of something are as valuable as the whole. Like its constitutive parts, like the pigment, you know, this like, all of these like markings that the bubbles in this plastic make, the paper, those are all like materially interesting and valuable. It's not just this photograph's capacity to like tell you a story that's valuable.
Now, do these people mean anything to you?
No, I don't know them at all. But I think even if I did, like...
But do you think like the nature of them being on there gives it something? I mean, somebody was somewhere, took a picture of some people at a place. Does that, or you're just like, no, now you're seeing this as raw wood?
Well, I'm kind of interested in like, that's a good question, because I think like something that feels really honest to me, and so I'm like usually pretty inspired by it, is admitting failure and admitting the inability to do something. And like, I think that even if I'm like empathizing with these figures in this photo and thinking about this photo like a little more sentimentally, ultimately it is still just me projecting onto this thing. I'll never actually know. And I kind of even feel that with my family photos, you know what I mean? Like when I look at Kodaks of like my grandma in the 80s, I'm like making up stories, but I don't fully believe the romantic idea that like those stories are as like, yeah, romantic as I'm making them out to be from her perspective, from my perspective as her granddaughter.
Okay.
I kind of love the honesty of admitting that there are like certain things I can't access as a human who like speaks language.
Okay.
Like there are limits to my perception, there are limits to my value system as a person in the world, in the West. And yeah, so like breaking things down into their material constitutive parts and showing that those materials are still like productive and interesting and can teach me something.
Okay.
You know, like maybe we think of a photograph as like teaching us what happened, or like teaching us a moment in time, telling us about this thing that happened, or this story illustrated in this photo. But I also think that just the ink can teach me something, and like the way it moves on the page can teach me something, the way it like does or don't.
But of course, my brain is like, no.
Yeah.
You've ruined it.
Yeah, because it's broken.
Totally, it's just like, well, no, that's not what it is.
Yeah, it's like a broken thing.
I love it.
But I think that also is like visible in these projects here. Like these two things, for example, like we'll go to this one. Like these are just words that I,
Can you tell me what I'm seeing? What are the words?
Yeah, this is the word fatigue.
Fatigue, yes.
This is the word trace, and this is the word chien, which is something that I was called by my family.
Okay.
It means like It technically means fragrant in Mandarin, but it means like sweet. It's like how we use like sweetie or something.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think a lot about language, like language's relationship to objects, as synonymous with maybe surface's relationship to form, like this sort of shallow, surface-based, immediate thing that we have access to that may or may not be true to the actual like depth and fullness of the thing that it's describing. So sometimes, I'm sure you experience this too, but sometimes the description of something is really unable to capture the thing itself.
Falls short.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in the fact that like the most precise tool we have for description and understanding and for establishing value systems is language, but I grew up in a house where I wasn't speaking the language of the people in the house. Like I grew up monolingual in a bilingual household, and I was raised by someone who didn't speak my language. So my grandmother spoke Mandarin only, and I spoke English only. But it was just us two, like for many hours of the day.
Mostly because your parents were both working.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
so then language really does like contort. And, interesting.
But despite that, like I think I was the closest to her out of everyone.
Of course.
In the house, because the language that we made was not comprised of like inherited languages. We like made it ourselves, and it involved gesticulations. It involved like using things from around the house. It involved pointing. It also involved like, you know, like bastardized words from both languages.
Sure.
Because it was like more of a tactile, felt experience of language and communication.
Yeah.
Perhaps more of a sculptural method of communication. I think she remembered it better than she remembered even Mandarin Chinese at the end of her life. So like, yeah, she had Alzheimer's, and I would go visit her, and she was relatively nonverbal at this point. But what was amazing was that when I saw her, after a really long time of not living together and not speaking this language, she remembered it. We could still speak this language, and I think like the body's memory of, like the way that the body is receiving communication through materials and through embodied memory is probably a lot more potent and meaningful than just the language that we have to describe things. Like oftentimes to me, language feels just like paint on the surface of something. It's not the thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's the way we can make contact with the thing.
Yeah.
Maybe outline it, but it's not the thing.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, working in media, like mediated materials, improvisationally and intuitively, it allows me to get outside of verbal language and get into another like embodied material language. Yeah, that's not so linguistic. It's like, it's sensory and like somatic.
Well, can we relate that to this? Is there any way to kind of show me in real time what I photographed?
Yeah, I think, I mean,
what are we looking at?
We're looking at cuttlefish bones that are really soft, and this is the only bone that a cuttlefish has. They're really powdery, and you can carve right into them. Like I like to carve into them, like even just with like pencils, but you can carve channels into them. Being mindful of hydrodynamics, you carve a funnel into like a place in your design that makes sense. This part makes sense because this is going to shoot all the way down the design and hopefully make it down into these.
So it's kind of like a tributary.
Yes, exactly.
Like tiny little tributaries.
Yeah. Whereas
leading to a river.
If I made the funnel here, for example, like doot doot, and I poured it this way, that would be a slightly worse idea because then I'd be asking the water pressure to not only come out, but also up and against gravity for each of these little tributaries. So gravity and flow says to put, the funnel here. So
So that's why you were impressed by the last take.
Yeah, because it worked.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
Yes, indeed. Sometimes it doesn't work. Most times it doesn't work. But I like these cuttlefish bones because they actually impart like a texture. It almost looks like a topographical map or something, but they impart a texture into the pewter. You can sand this down to be like a mirror finish, but I like the sort of like scaly, fishy texture that this gives it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it looks ancient. Definitely has like a aged, well, this is bone. I mean, who knows how
well, I
far
think that this is how they did it.
Okay.
They being people much older than us from a long time ago. This is like these kinds of methods, like this and sand casting, like
oh, sure.
This is how like, not in cuttlefish obviously, but this is how like people would make like gears for their wheels. In like early machinery, they would just like impress shapes into sand and cast metal into them.
Okay.
Pewter's a really soft metal, so they probably weren't doing it with pewter. I think it's beneficial to me to like try to remain a novice, even if I keep doing something over and over again, to like feel like I'm using my child brain.
Yeah, you said child brain. What do you think that means? Like, is that really possible as an adult?
Yeah. I think totally. Yeah.
Do you think that's just you thinking you can?
Yeah. Yeah. But
I have a 2-year-old, almost 2-year-old, so I totally envy.
Oh yeah.
The ability to.
Do you like watch them play and get?
I'm with her almost all day, every day. Yeah, I mean, it's magical.
Yeah.
Like, it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, totally. I think if you're an adult person in this world, there's like, I feel like I have a lot to learn from really old people, really young people, animals, and objects. And I feel like they're all they're all at different parts of the spectrum of like wisdoms that I, as a super like busy, person with a full-time job, like, they have wisdom that like I don't really have access to right now.
Okay.
But I can aspire.
That's what you're searching for.
Yeah, or just trying to stay in contact with, I think, like, like I really don't want to be the expert at what I'm working on. I think that's totally not the goal. And I can like fabricate stuff, like I make stuff for other people, but I would love, like I could make any giant sculpture I wanted to make, but I don't let myself do that, which is, sometimes I'm like, why? But yeah, I don't let myself get too overbearing over the material.
Okay.
My hope is that it's my collaborator, it's not like my tool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you.
So it's not, I'm not really trying to express myself consciously in my work. It has to be like peripherally.
And you feel like people are okay with that?
Like my viewers?
Yeah, just like, I don't know. I used to be a painter, so.
Yeah.
I also believed in the, layers upon layers. Like I didn't come at it with it taught me something. That was the goal. Like, is it revealing something to me?
Yeah.
And until it revealed itself, I had to keep going.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are down with having a research-based practice where like I research stuff and I output that research into my expressions, but I think about it the other way around. Like this feels much more like practice-based research. Like I write, but I think I learn everything from touching stuff and making stuff, and it teaches me what to write.
Got it.
It's not that my reading and writing teaches me what to sculpt.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
I don't really know if people are okay with it. I know galleries aren't, that's for sure. But I think if I keep doing it,
sure,
it'll make sense.
Bunker's okay with it.
Bunker's okay with it. Yeah. Bunker's okay with it.
Bunker's great. Bunker's the best.
And I'm okay with it. I'm not okay with the alternate,
Sure.
So I think that's why.
Okay.
It has to be this way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
All right, is it ready?
It cooled down a lot.
Oh no.
I know. But, oh, actually, it's starting again.